Hi there, and a very warm welcome on this rather chilly but sunny Joburg day. Lovely to have you with us. Welcome to another edition of the Coaching Hour. I'm Paul Rotherham, joining you from my home here in Benoni. And on the call today, two ladies, both of which you have seen before on the Coaching Hour podcast. Firstly, Mareka, my friend, colleague, and co host. Hello, Mareka.
Hi, Paul.
Nice to have you with us. I know Mareka has had a couple of internet glitches while we were chatting this morning. So if the picture starts stuttering or Mareka disappears completely as you watch this, you know why. The third picture on your screen is that of Veronique, who is no stranger to the Coaching Hour. We have featured you before. Lovely to have you with us. Welcome, Veronique.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back today.
Yes.
Nice to have you with us. Mareka, you got to set up what it is we're chatting about today.
Good. Yes, we had such a lovely chat with Veronique previously that we thought we wanted to continue the conversation. So yes, Veronique is the owner of Just Be Coaching, and she teaches, counsels, and coaches. And we would like you to also stick to the end today, but Veronique will give us some more insight on that. Today, we want to talk a bit more about how to discover your true self. We just touched on it the previous conversation, and we'll also put that link in the description to first maybe, start off with our first discussion and then see how we continue today. So thank you again, Veronique, for entertaining us once again on the Coaching Hour today.
Thank you. It really is lovely to be back. We had such a nice conversation last time.
We did, yes, indeed. Because we spoke a bit more, in terms of discovering your true self, but we just touched on it. And I think it's important because it is something that most people, and well, I would say most people, because if I see clients, one of the things that people struggle with is to know who they are, and not knowing who they are, they don't know how to get there. It's something they need to find or they need to discover. Yeah, I don't know even if you can give us some maybe background on it maybe first before we get into the how part.
Okay, so there's quite a big conversation that can take many tributaries, but I think to put it into perspective, when we're born, assuming that there was no trauma during birth or prior to birth, or things like mom was an addict or abused or something like that. So let's assume that baby is had a good 9 months in the womb and all was well, and baby is born. That baby in essence is pure and whole and complete and free, and call it if we compare it to a laptop, a fully functional brand new operating system that is perfect, whole, and ready to be utilized and to work. But very soon after birth, that baby is exposed to all sorts of things, experiences, normal everyday experiences like hunger and weather conditions and cold and the newness of maybe food and being bathed, all that kind of stuff. But even all of those things, whilst normal, can be traumatic and can be, because think about it, that baby's never been in a bathtub before. That baby's never experienced cold before, or maybe something dropping and the shock of a loud noise or something. So the brain of that baby, call it the hard drive in the computer, starts to pick up information and starts to accumulate information. Now, coupled to that, parents who are maybe under a lot of pressure or stress and don't know how to handle things because they're human beings and we don't always know how to handle everything. Maybe baby's crying and baby's trying to get attention or wants to be held, but the parents have been told that new age parenting means leave the baby will figure itself out, don't go and hold the baby, or whatever the case may be. Baby starts to pick up memories and experiences, some of which can be favorable and make that baby feel safe and accepted in the world. And some of those experiences may be confusing for that baby And the baby starts to pick up many little traumas along the way. And as this baby grows and it's 2-3 years old and it starts to act out more, or it starts to recognize that if I do certain things, I'm going to get a reaction out of my parents, or a smile, or they're going to make a noise. Like you'll see when a baby poops, and then you wipe the poop, and then the baby goes, and then it knows the parent's going to go, oh no, I just cleaned that, so they start to learn that there's a give and take. And as the child continues to grow, it starts to maybe develop a bit of its own autonomy, and it starts to push back, or it may throw a tantrum. And again, if you've got parents that don't know how to navigate that or validate that child and say things like, I can see that you're angry and your anger is very valid. Having said that, just because you're getting angry doesn't mean that we're going to compromise on the boundaries or whatnot. You might find that parents who've never had parents that validated them will do the same thing to their children, like punish them or give them silent treatment or give them a smack on the bottom, or say, I'm the parent, you listen to what I say, and then use a sort of a forceful approach, which the kid again may internalize and be scared of. So long story short, all of these things start to shape the way the child shows up in the world. Maybe pushing down anger, because if I throw a tantrum, then my parents ignore me for 3 months. Or if I show my anger, then I get smacked or punished or put into a room by myself. And very quickly, a kid learns that in order to keep safe and keep being okay and get my mom and dad's attention, I have to split parts of myself away. And without that child even knowing what it's doing or having the brain capacity to go, no, I'm allowed to be angry, because obviously you're at an age where you don't know how to do that, that child starts to develop coping mechanisms that become a trajectory later on in life. So if a kid learns that if I throw a tantrum and I keep throwing a tantrum and keep being moody, then I get my way, you'll find that the adult will do the same thing. If a kid shies away and goes into its shell and becomes quiet and invisible in order to stay safe and in order to not be bollocked or punished, you'll find that that child grows up to be a relatively dissociative adult. Of course, I'm being extreme. There are variations of this because, there's still the teenage years and you meet people along the way that can have an impact on this. But circling back to discovering yourself, and I'd prefer to call it rediscovering yourself. Because if all is well, there is no need to rediscover or to discover yourself. But if with well-meaning parents, because even well-meaning parents can screw us up sometimes, because there is no guidebook and no one comes out unscathed. But if we get to a point in our lives, usually around about the age of 35, 45, Carl Jung coined that midlife crisis, but most of us get to a stage in our life where we go, I'm noticing patterns and I'm sick and tired of these patterns and I want them to change. Or you start to go, yes, something is off. Like if this is what adulting is, I want to do this anymore. Something needs to change. Or people suddenly quit their very stressful job and want to open up a coffee shop or go and sell everything and suddenly go travel the world and experience stuff. That's usually a calling back to who we were originally meant to be. And remember, I used the analogy of the computer where your operating system was designed for you. But the brain, which was the hard drive that was empty, which you've put maybe viruses and pitches and softwares and stuff in that are not compatible with your operating system, at some point in the line usually between the age of 35 to 45, that operating system starts to go, something is not working properly here. And just like a computer, it will start to feel sluggish and hang, or it will take forever to start up or shut down, or maybe the technology on there doesn't work properly anymore, and you suddenly go, something needs to change. And unfortunately, unlike a computer, you can't trash the body you're in and replace it. But the only way to find that peace and balance and work optimally again is to introspect and to go, what in my patterning, what in my thinking, what in my health, body, mind, and spirit serves me and complements who I am and who I was born to be, and what doesn't, or what is not mine, and start sort of peeling away those layers. And that's why when you go back to rediscovering yourself, or get back to your balance or your peace or your sense of faith, trust, and allowance, there are a lot of what they call dark nights of the soul. And I use the analogy of the onion, because just like when you're cutting an onion or peeling an onion, you cry, because part of peeling away those layers and those protective things that have got us to where we are, but now we realize we don't want anymore. There is loss and grief that comes with that, because with transformation, there are also deaths and painful things, and recognizing, oh my goodness, I have spent 40 years trying to get my mommy's approval, and I'm now ready to grow up. You know, some people are in adult bodies, but only grow up when they're 50 or 60 years old. You know,
If
some
at
people,
all, I think some people
if at
never grow
all.
up.
Exactly,
Yeah.
if at all. Yeah.
I must say, we've all, Veronique, we've all heard of midlife crisis, and there's these jokes about middle-aged men going out and finding young girls and sports cars, and I'm sure there's an equivalent for middle-aged ladies as well. But you've really just explained it with the computer in a way that no one has ever painted that picture. And thank you for that, because just that alone was hugely valuable to me. I was just listening to you and picturing my mind as this computer, and my life as this computer. And well done. I think you've done a great job of communicating that. I don't know if you enjoyed that as well, Marika.
I did, because it paints a good picture. Sluggish, struggling, waking up, getting, yourself ready for the day. So it sounds very familiar.
And I think as well, I stand to be corrected, but I think we're living in an age and in a time, even without COVID having taken place, where more and more people are now questioning. Perhaps it's as a result of the technology and the information that's available to us. My brother and I were chatting recently, and he's also suffering, as I am to some extent, although he's 10 years younger than me, suffering with this just permanent go, 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 he calls it. He's always doing something. Admittedly, he's got two baby girls. One is 1 and one is 3. So that in itself is a full-time job. But he just said to me, he came across an article recently that explained why he feels like he never has a rest. And the article was saying that the average human being now in 2024 is consuming 4 times the amount of data that we were being fed just 20 years ago. Now, I know 20 years ago sounds like a long time, but it actually isn't. That's 2 decades. 20 years ago, we are now literally being forced to suck up 4 times the amount of data. And I think that also, all of this information that's available, it has people questioning. We're questioning why we're here. What is our purpose? Where are we going? What are we doing? Who are we? Simon Sinek's why, everything now has to have a why. How do we drill into this and find the answers, though?
I think again, it comes back to knowing yourself, because you mentioned that we have so much more data available to us that we can consume, but just like anything, whether it's carrots, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whether it's sleeping tablets, whether anything really. Why is it that some people can have a drink and then not drink for 6 months? And why is it that some people need to have a bottle of booze a day? Why is it that some people can pick up their phone when it rings or when there's a message, or even just allocate certain amount of time per day to engage with the messages. And other people are stuck to their phone from the minute that they wake up till they go to sleep. I don't think it's the data that's available or the alcohol that's available, the drugs that's available. It's our relationship with ourselves, or maybe our dissociation and our disconnection with ourselves, that drives behaviors that are not serving to who you are. So the answer lies in getting to know yourself. And I think a lot of these, like addiction programs, for example, often don't work because they focus on the willpower and the shaming that there's something wrong with what you're doing, instead of helping people understand, and you mentioned why I'm doing it. Because when you understand your operating system, then you know what you're capable of, and you know where you can push the boundaries, and you know which software is aligned with you and which is going to make you hang, right? So again, it's about getting back to knowing yourself. And you mentioned it seems to be more now than ever after COVID. And that makes sense, because in COVID, we were forced really through an unconscious fear into isolation. And for a couple of months, the whole world was stuck at home. And when you're stuck at home in a box, whether by yourself or with someone else, and you can't leave, you can't go and do your usual addictions or dissociations, or like you say, your brother is go, 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 you know, and a lot of people are workaholics or always keeping busy, which is a form of dissociation. Now you're in a box, and the relationship problems that you shove under the carpet now cannot be shoved under the carpet anymore because they're there. And you can maybe for a week or two pretend that they're not, and then suddenly they become very real. And if you're by yourself and you've always found a way to keep busy, go to work, go shopping, do sports, blah, 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 and now suddenly you're at home in a box and there's just you, yourself, and you can't hide or run from the things that you hide and run from. And I'm reminded of Joseph Campbell and his book, where he talks about the hero's journey. And he refers to facing those parts of us that we try to run away from as dragons. You got to face the dragons and slay the dragons. And they will either consume you, or they will be a turning point in your life where you liberate yourself and face the shadows and the things that you are denying or running away from. And as you said, your brother always he uses the words, I'm always go, go, go. He's always chasing something. The question I would love to ask your brother is, if you're always chasing something, what are you possibly running away from? Because when you're chasing something, you're always in the future. And people who are trying to chase something in the future are usually trying to avoid something from the past that they haven't dealt with, but they know that's there. And because of that, they don't allow themselves to stop and be in the present moment. Because the minute that you stop and you sit and you be present, you can't run anymore. And whatever it is you're running away from is there, and it needs to be faced.
It's an interesting observation, and there are a lot of similarities in Dean and I, even though he's 10 years younger than me. I always put the phrase go, 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 or however you'd like to explain it for yourself, I always put that down to ambition. Is there a fine line between someone who is ambitious and a go-getter versus someone who is literally running away from their problems of the past?
I think so there is no hard and fast rule, because you can be ambitious and you can have goals that you go after. But I think it's in what people say. So if they're tired and they say they never have time to do what they need to do, or they feel like they've got burnout, or they're sleeping like 4 or 5 hours, or they're never available for quality time with the family, like some of the things that make us human, then you can probably deduce that they are running from something. And that doesn't mean that it's pathological or that there's something wrong with the person. Remember, I mentioned that we learn to cope and survive this life when we're very little. So if we, for example, learn that the only way we get mom and dad's attention is when we're achieving, that's when they're happiest with us. That's when they're not criticizing us. That's when they're not punishing us. That's when they're going, oh, I'm so proud of you, my boy. You did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. That's amazing. That feels good, right? So then that could be an example of a kid that learns that through achieving, I get that sense of validation and acknowledgement that I seek, that we all want, because we all want to be seen and appreciated for who we are, right? So it could become a pattern, a lifelong pattern, that as long as I'm achieving and I'm getting a bigger house and a bigger car and a bigger promotion and I'm doing, then the people that I love are happy with me and will validate me and show up for me. But the thing is, if you're constantly chasing, you will most certainly get to a point where you do get burnout because it's not sustainable. So where the external validation becomes the drive for the chasing and the achieving, it demonstrates that the person hasn't fully integrated and understands their own worth, because they're seeking that worth through the chasing and the acknowledgement that they get from the achievement. To become centered is to know your worth, not to need it from an external source. And that goes back to feeling safe to exist and understanding your own existence and your own strengths and weaknesses and where your boundaries are.
Now, Veronique, what you're mentioning takes quite a lot of awareness, because we're so stuck, in that, I don't know, the old system, the programming, if I can call it that, the hardware, that you don't see. At some point you realize, like you've mentioned earlier, okay, I'm 40 years old now, and I realized I always wanted my mom's, validation. Now I only realize it, now I can change it. So there's two things I think that's a challenge. And the first thing is, how do I become aware that I'm stuck in this mindset, that I'm kind of lost? And the second thing is, you need the tools. If you say you slay the dragon, you need tools to do that. And I think that's the two main issues. Firstly, to become aware of it, because how do I rediscover my true self? It takes a hell of a lot of internal awareness.
Okay, so again, there isn't one answer. Some people may have a monumental thing that happens in life, like a loss or a death or a natural disaster or something that happens that shakes you up, right? I mean, we've all had gadgets where they're not working and then you get pissed off and then you throw it or you punch it or something and then suddenly it's working, right? So I'm not by any means saying that that's what you must do, but sometimes horrible things happen in life, like loss or death or whatever, and that can sort of shake the person, and it kind of resolves itself and it kind of realigns or recalibrates the person. The other thing is that people start to recognize, like you say, there's something off and something needs to change. So the first thing that I would say is that the person has to want to work on themselves and want to change something. Because if it doesn't come from I want to and I have a desire or a willingness to change or evolve or something needs to change, it doesn't matter how much therapy, how many courses, how many rehabs, whatever you go to, it's not going to work. So it first starts with a decision to want to evolve or change or take a look and say, okay, I take responsibility that this is my life and something's not working and I'm willing to look at myself. And then there's many methodologies available. Therapy is the most common one. When people get to that point, they tend to go for therapy. And there are some really great psychologists and psychiatrists, and I'm going to go on a limb here, but my issue with psychology and psychiatry is that a lot of the traditionally trained doctors are very quick to diagnose and to prescribe. And I have, this is a personal view, I have a resistance to that because, like I mentioned, these are coping strategies that we've developed over our life to survive. Doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with the person. There's just maybe something wrong or a space for change in terms of how I'm coping with life that needs to change. So when the person figures out why I'm doing what I'm doing, where it came from, where I started these things, then that is empowering because it gives you the choice to go, okay, I see now that by doing that, this happens. I can change that. And it might not be easy to change that, but at least you've pinpointed it and you can start with discomfort, trying out new ways of doing things. You know, it reminds me the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and hoping for a different outcome. And I think we're all guilty of it sometimes, you know, where you keep going back to a relationship or you keep doing the same thing, hoping is going to have a different outcome. And then you get annoyed that the same nonsense happened again, right? So when a person actually recognizes, I want to change, I realize that something, that's actually sanity. So those people, in fact, should be celebrated for the courage to go, I'm willing to take responsibility and open myself up to it. So in my own personal experience, I went through a lot of frustration with doctors and alternative healers and all sorts of other methodologies, from Tai Chi to Reiki to crystals to the traditional doctors, all sorts of things. And the thing that actually changed my life was a little lady who now has passed away called Louise Hay. And she developed a methodology called Heal Your Life. And it changed my life. And it basically takes you on about a 10-session journey where you study yourself. So you disclose how much you want to, and you go as deep as you feel comfortable with. Because here's the thing, when you go for therapy and you're sitting in that room with the fluorescent lights and suddenly the spotlight is on you, if you, for example, that dissociative person, it might take you a few months to trust that environment and start opening up. That said, you might spend years talking about your past and never figuring out what it is you're doing or what needs to change. So it can work if you've got a lot of time and money, but it might also not work. On the other hand, if you're a go person like Paul's brother and even like myself, I'll be sitting there going, I'm paying 4,000 Rand for this. This is a third session. Like nothing is happening. This is BS. And I will get frustrated and angry and want my money back and want to leave. And that is what used to happen, because when you go, you want action, you want achievement, right? And then if nothing is changing and you're paying and there's no accountability and nothing's happening, that's a source of immense frustration and anger once again. So you can see how the patterns then play out again, but you're not getting the resolve. So the beauty that I found in the course is that you bring what you are comfortable to bring, and you get to understand yourself, where your patterns are, where they came from, who you copied, who you got support from or didn't get support of, where you got stuck, where you are not letting go of things. And it couples with that also very simple skills that actually we all have to our advantage, but possibly never learned because we had parentals who were well-meaning, but they themselves didn't know. And you actually start to heal yourself and push yourself at a pace that is comfortable for you. And it really changed my life. I mean, 2022, I went through enormous loss, and I can confess to you that I actually asked God to remove me from this planet. And I can tell you, if it wasn't for having learned the process of Heal Your Life, I may not have got through 2022. And I'm not suicidal, and I have an enormous desire to live. And I believe that all of us, depending on how much trauma or hardship is pushed upon us in life, have those thoughts. And that doesn't make us dark or crazy. That just makes us human, because the heartbeat of life is the ups and downs. And sometimes you really need to hit rock bottom and get onto your knees in order to really crack open and go, hold on a second, what actually matters to me? And if I look back now, I think it was one of the most liberating experiences for me, because it forced me to take those onion layers off at a hell of a rapid race, or it would have destroyed me, you know. But the things that I learned from that course, I saw in that time how they helped me and liberated me, and I was able to be the person that I needed for myself. And now I love sharing that knowledge with other people, and seeing how it changes them. Because the only way to heal really is to empower yourself, right? The minute that we put our power in somebody else's hands, it makes us a paper bag that gets blown around in the wind.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for sharing that, Veronique. I mean, Louise, hey, all that I know about that small little book, booklet with organs and what emotions and stuff is, that's my knowledge.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's the furthest my knowledge goes in terms of, her the book that she wrote. I even didn't know that there was that course, that you really go into depths, to heal your life.
Well, while we're on the topic, I'm a Louise Hay practitioner. I'm licensed through the States, so maybe I can offer the listeners a gift. And if people sign up, if they're interested to work on themselves and they'd like to do the course, they're welcome to do it with me in person or online. And maybe just because it is my second time back, and it's always nice to give something back, maybe if people sign up as buddies or as a duo or two at a time, I'm willing to offer a 50% discount. Or if people want to sign up independently by themselves, I'll give a 20% discount.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because it really is life-changing, and I'm very passionate about it. And if I can help people with that, then yeah, they will spread it on. They will help other people and teach other people.
Absolutely.
But I want to limit it to the first 10 people or 10 sign-ups.
Yes, because thousands are going to stream in after today.
Imagine. But yeah, there is limited time. So,
yes, of course.
and maybe we throw in a code so that we know it's your viewers.
Okay.
How about the cherry on top?
I love that. I think that's a cool code to have. The cherry on top.
The cherry on top or the cherry on the top?
The cherry on top.
The cherry on top. Gosh, that's a lot of things to remember. Hopefully you can spell the cherry on top.
Oh, they can just say it really and visualize the cherry on top of the ice cream. So
I will know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Veronique, where, just for practical purposes, online is fantastic, but I think face-to-face is always first prize where possible. I'm sure you'd agree with that as a coach. Where are you based again?
I'm based in Lone Hill near Monte Cassino.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So the aircraft that we heard earlier was on its way to Lanseria or from Lanseria?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
But I'm also flexible because some clients appreciate nature. So sometimes we can have sessions in the park, get a picnic blanket and sit in the park. It's about finding the space where you feel you're most safe, you're most comfortable, you're most free to be yourself. And if that means having open, fresh air with a bit of sunshine, then we can do that also.
That's nice.
Wonderful. And the link to this course will, of course, be in the description, Mareka, is that right?
Yes, I'll put it there also.
As long as you remember, the cherry on top is your code, and that is available and applicable to the first 10 signups only. So best be quick.
Yes, I'll also put Veronique's telephone number and email address in the description. So, however way that you get in contact with her. Veronique, so these sessions, can it be done like one person at a time, or also in a group setting?
It can also be done in a group setting. Obviously, then the sessions are a bit longer, because I do believe it's important that people can have a voice and ask questions and share, and there's demonstrations and stuff like that. The reason why, remember in the beginning of the session, I mentioned I do 3 methodologies. There's the teaching, there's the counseling, and then there's the coaching. And I think maybe now is a good time to explain why. If you just go for counseling, you tend to look back a lot, but you could be thinking that something from your past is the problem, but the very thing that actually is causing the problem is not popping up or isn't top of mind, right? Because the subconscious and the unconscious likes to suppress stuff when it doesn't feel safe to deal with it. So we tend to play around when we go for help. We tend to play around in what we're consciously aware of. So what the course does is it helps you to gently create safety within yourself and within the environment where you're exploring, so that what needs to pop up will pop up when you're ready to deal with it. So I teach the methodologies in the course, and I teach you how to re-look at yourself and get past your blind spots, or acknowledge what's working, what's not working, so that you are in the course, but you are learning yourself. There's a structure, you even get a certificate at the end, etc. But then what happens is, as you start to now carry on through life, now you will start to notice the patterns. And then you'll start to have memories that pop up from your past. So now you can see that there is a need for some counseling, because remember, the counseling looks at the past. But you now know how to stay safe and not derail, but you've also developed a relationship with someone that can hold the space with you, who's gone through that journey with you, that can help you unpack or resolve that past stuff. And the coaching part plays a role in, now that I understand myself and I understand my operating system, I'm ready to move forward, but without the burden of the stress and the chasing. And that's then where the coaching plays a role, because the accountability and the goals, and Paul, you mentioned earlier the ambition, so we can have those goals and those goal posts, but we don't get attached to them, because we know they can pivot and change. And it's not because we're running away from something, which is the tiring hamster wheel effect. We're going after those goal posts from a sense of presence, and I know who I am and why I'm doing this.
Wow, thank you. That makes sense, actually. Paul.
Very insightful. Thank you, Veronique. I do hope that you are very quickly well subscribed in terms of this course. That would be fantastic. And I'm definitely going to Google Louise Hay, because just like you said, Mareka, you have limited knowledge of her and what she's done and her work, and a very interesting and insightful and inspirational lady. I'm sure she's changed thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands of people's lives.
We call her Mum Louise.
Mum Louise.
When did she die?
I think it was 3-4 years ago. It was quite recently. And she died literally healthy in her sleep as an old lady.
Wow.
And again, I always feel that dying in your sleep, like going to bed one day and just never waking up, almost seems like the ideal, almost wishful death, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be my first choice as well. Just not
Yes.
yet. Only when I'm an old man.
No, exactly. And she basically cured herself of cancer twice. She was abused. She was abandoned and rejected. She was left by her husband. I mean, she was born sort of just in or just after the war. I mean, this lady's story, it's an epic story. If you get the book from Take a Lot, chapter 16 actually tells her life story in a nutshell. But I think it's that actually made the woman, because it's only when you've lived and you've gone through the hardships and then sort of become the observer of your life and go, okay, what am I going to do with this and what is it teaching me? That's when you liberate yourself and you become inspiring. And most of us don't get there because we get so stuck in our stories, in the discomfort of the unhealth or the disease or the struggles of life, that we don't stop for a second and go, let me observe myself and what's going on here. What do I want to maintain? What do I want to change? And the minute that you do that, that's when you take your power back, you see. And that's when your life starts to change and to flourish. And yeah, I really think that somebody who went, like Louise, who went through all of that and managed to, even at old age, continue to do her talks and her inspirational workshops, and one day went to sleep in great health and just didn't wake up. I admire that because it shows full force that she was living what she was preaching. And the life story and then her death kind of embodied that, you know. So
what is the book called, Veronique?
Heal Your Life.
Heal Your Life.
Heal Your Life, yeah.
Okay.
This is an old version of it. So this takes you through, in essence, the course in a top line level. The course that I would take the person through really builds on this and goes deeper. Because when we do start doing the work on ourselves, stuff does come up. So you want to know that there is someone who understands, that you can talk to, that is there to kind of proverbially hold your hand through the process, you know, because it can be daunting and scary. And Paul, you might enjoy a YouTube movie called Finding Joe as well, which is based on Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey and his book.
I will have a look for that. Finding Joe.
Finding
Not Nemo,
Joe, yeah.
Joe.
It's free. No, Joe, because Joe is short for Joseph Campbell. So, and because it's his book and kind of his theory, it also talks to that and fighting those dragons and stuff. You might enjoy that, and
Wonderful.
It's free. So
thank you for that. And I think that's a great place to leave today's podcast and video here on the Coaching Hour. Veronique, thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely having you back again, and I do hope we can have you back again in future. Very insightful, and I find you very calming, and I love how you explain things and paint pictures. I think that's something that the Coaching Hour strives to do, is to turn all this theory into pictures that people can understand, and you do that very well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement.
Marika, dankie. We'll look forward to your company on the next one.
Great. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.